Hi, I'm Joanne Lee Cornish, body composition coach and slightly obsessed with being an outlier in midlife and beyond. I offer one-on-one coaching. I have 7 group coaching programs that I run throughout the year, and I also have a 10-month mentorship program. You can find out all about those and a lot more at my website, joannelee.com. Okay, let's get on with this podcast. Hello. Okay, as promised, today we're going to talk about quad dominance. So usually in the ladies, and honestly, usually in the younger ladies before they really start to appreciate muscle loss. So definitely I hear this a lot with ladies in their 30s, early 40s. I hear it less from women in their 50s and above. So in the younger ladies, what I hear is, oh, I'm training, I'm squatting, I'm lunging, I'm lifting heavy. And instead of getting round glutes, I'm just getting bigger quads and a flat butt. What I hear in ladies, late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, is they're not talking about necessarily quad dominance, but they're definitely talking about feeling things more in their quads and just not getting any glute results. So a lot of this is about quad dominance, and a lot of it, again, is with regards to the ladies, and it's partly because it can be a function of our body proportions. So I'm going to remind you every podcast until we start, Muscle Month is coming up on March the 29th. Usually I run it once a year. I don't think this year is going to be any different. What I can guarantee you by the end of Muscle Month is you will know more about building muscle than, honestly, probably 95% of trainers. And that is not to be disparaging. I'm just a trainer myself, and I know it's the truth. I know what this program has. I know the information I provide, and very little of that information is provided in the certification programs that trainers do. So that's not to be disparaging. That's just being accurate. MuscleMonth.com. Let's get going. All right. Ladies that are frustrated, you are squatting, you are lunging, you are lifting super heavy, but instead of building that booty, your quads are growing, your thighs look bigger, look thick, your knees ache, and your glutes flat as a pancake. So if you haven't heard the podcast that came before this, I've already done a podcast, and there's videos on my YouTube, on Instagram. Just look for my name, Joanne Lee Cornish, on the glute activation thing. You kind of come in a little bit later with this podcast. So today we're answering the question, why are women so often quad dominant? And more importantly, what does that mean for their shape, their joints, and to some extent their metabolism? So the problem, quad dominance means that your body prefers knee extension over hip extension. Do you know what they are? If you don't know what they are, you better come do a Muscle Month. Okay. Knee extension over hip extension. So translation, you drive movement from the front of your leg instead of the back of the leg. So in the last podcast, I did talk about hip extension and how it's crucial for activation of the hamstrings and the glutes. But if the body prefers knee extension, then, the glutes are kind of getting bypassed and the quads are going to take over. This isn't because you're doing something wrong on purpose. It's because the structure and the nervous system are influencing how we move. And women are particularly prone to this. So think of the biomechanics here. Women generally have a wider pelvis. Yeah. Not me. I used to say I looked like a young boy. Now I think I might look like a middle-aged guy. I'm not sure. But women generally have a wider pelvis. They have a greater Q angle at the knee. So think about hips are wide, knees are narrow, Q angle. as opposed to my Android figure, which is my hips are kind of over my knees. Like there's not that much difference. Now, this one's good. There's more femoral internal rotation. There's a tendency to, so your femur, the bone in your thigh, there's more tendency for it to be internally rotated. Now, that's partly for some women because the wider hips. It can definitely be walking around in heels all the time. And then also women have a greater laxity in the joints. So the wider pelvis, the Q angle, this internal rotation of the femur and the joints maybe being a little bit looser, this changes force distribution. So when you squat, lunge, if you do a step up, the body naturally wants to shift the load forward. So it naturally wants to have more knee bend. It wants more quad drive. It wants less hip extension. So now add in modern life, sitting a lot, which is the complete opposite of hip extension. Wearing heels, don't get me started. I love wearing heels, but at least I don't wear them during the day. Sitting cross-legged, which I am at the moment. Okay, let me just uncross my leg. That's weird. But crossing, and you can only cross them one way, right? You can't cross them the other way because that's doubly weird. Okay, for the sake of this podcast, I'm going to change the direction of my knees. Okay, sitting, wearing heels, crossed legs, pelvic instability because we haven't really thought about it too much. That's pretty much a perfect recipe for quad dominance. What about the hormonal influence? Well, estrogen increases the looseness of the ligaments. That means the joints are often more mobile, but less stable. Now, if the hips lack stability, potentially because of estrogen, the body seeks stability elsewhere. So I talk about this with my clients with injury. If you get one loose joint, the next joint is often stiff. Or if you get one joint that's stiff, the next joint is often loose. So if people have had an ankle injury, they might end up with loose knees. Or if they've had a knee issue, they might have a hip problem or an ankle problem. So if the hip lacks stability, then the body seeks stability on the next joint. And that's where the quads step in. The glutes step back, they get less involved, but the quads step in. The body seeks stability through the quad. So this is like a structural and a neurological one. The neurological lines I'm talking about, this is where the body has to figure out where it is in space. So in Muscle Month, I do talk about posture. And I'm going to do a personal training program later on in the year. I'm going to talk a lot more about posture on that. But, what posture is where is your body in space? And so wherever your joints are in space, the body has to adapt. And neurologically, the body has to compensate for that. So maybe increasing estrogen or estrogen dominance, which doesn't mean high estrogen, it just means estrogen dominance, say in the middle-aged ladies. And maybe that hips lack stability, coupled with, we spoke about in the last podcast, improperly loaded glutes. So the hips aren't strong and they may be a little bit loose. The body's absolutely going to seek stability through the quads. What else can it look like? If you squat very upright, now I'll do a heel raise squat for ladies with short torsos and long legs, intentionally to bring them a bit more upright. There's different variations of squats, and that really depends on your body proportion. It's one of the first things I look at in my female clients. I've actually got a lady just started with me, and she's been trying, like loading a back squat. I'm like, lady, you are not meant to load a back. She's got the most adorable. I get like body envy. She's adorable with this short little torso, legs for days, and she's trying to do heavy back squats. I'm like, not your gig there, lady. Not that she's never going to do a back squat, but that is not how I would load her because of her body proportions. So, and again, so it can be a lady's proportions, but if you tend to squat very upright, if you allow your knees to travel far, far forward, if you're pushing off your toes, if you're keeping your torso vertical, there's going to be a big bias towards the quads and not the glutes. Is that bad? No, not if it's intentional. I will do that deliberately. Like I will take people's feet low on the leg press if their knees are qualified to do so. And I'll have their feet low on the leg press so their knees do slide forward so I can put the emphasis on the quad. Like I say, I will elevate somebody's heels and I'll make them squat more vertical because I am trying to put emphasis on the quad. But if you're not, so if it's intentional, if it's deliberate, that's cool. It's not bad. But if that's just the way your body's moving because neurologically your body's adapting, then, if it's not deliberate, then yes, you're going to be quad dominant. I see this a lot in lunges. The ladies with lunges, I don't care if it's forward traveling, backward, reverse. I see this so much. Quad dominant when they're trying to activate their glutes. So again, if the goal is glute development, but you're really pushing towards being quad dominant, then you're feeding this imbalance. So again, many women are just accidentally training the exact muscle that's already dominant, wanting the opposite muscle to be responding, and it won't. They wonder, why? I train. I don't know something like that. I just don't have a butt. I'm losing my butt. Think, well, quads are looking pretty good. Yeah, so if you're weights in your toes, your knees are traveling forward no matter what exercise you're doing, if you're not aware of it. If you're doing everything with the base straight torso, yeah, pushing into your quads. What does quad dominance produce? Now, again, in the younger ladies, which is anything younger than me, and I'm 58, quad dominance tends to produce thicker front thighs, flat upper glutes. Oh, did I just ring a bell? Did I just press a button? Flat upper glutes, less glute projection. Ouch, ouch. Knee strain, lower back tension. Oh, I don't squat because my knees hurt and I don't do deadlifts because my back hurts. Because you're doing it all wrong. Did I ever tell you that story? I think a lady involved might actually listen to this. So I was in, I'm not even going to say where I was, just in case. I was somewhere and there was someone. And okay. I was at my hairdresser's and I was waiting for my hair. I was with my lovely lady, Shauna, and a lady in her chair, and super, super fit lady. And absolutely, and she looked amazing. And gosh. And she was saying how, and I often try not to get into discussions about what I do for a living because, everybody wants a 30-second answer. And I'm like, well, you can come and do my program. But anyway, this lady felt the need to tell me that she does with the trainer. She tells me, oh, well, I have a trainer. I'm like, bitch, I'm not here to rustle up clients. I'm just here to get my hair done. What are you talking about? But excuse me. After she told me she had a trainer. Beautiful, great. She says, yeah, I do hip thrusts with 580 pounds. It's like, okay, good for you. I said, oh, great. I'm totally not trying to get into this conversation. And she said, but I don't do deadlift or anything because I've got a bad back and I can't squat because of my knees. So I just really try and max out on this hip thrust. And I'm just internally rolling my eyes. But can we break this down? So she doesn't do a deadlift because it hurts her back. And she doesn't squat because it hurts her knees. But she is using 580 pounds in a glute hip thrust. How useful is that in life? Oh, that's great. Thank heavens that you never have to pick something off the floor or sit in a chair. Thank heavens. But wow, if you're in an emergency, you can maybe hip thrust your way out of a burning building. And I thought, how much are you paying that trainer? But anyway, my point is, I guarantee at £580, she's not doing those hip thrusts correctly straight away. But you're dead hurting your back because you're not loading your glutes. No way it should hurt your back. I train people that have compromised back. Anybody should be able to hinge. And if you squat because it hurts your knees, you're not doing it correctly. There's a modification you commit. Now, I'm not saying it's not people that have real challenge squatting, but I guarantee they always have to sit in a chair. I can't even remember why I told you that story. Where was I? I was talking about quad dominance, right? I was talking about, yeah, okay. So quad dominant, I really should use my notes. Quad dominance, what did I say? Thicker front thighs, flat upper glutes, less projection of the glutes, more knee strain and lower back tension, which brought me onto the story of the lady in the hair salon, because knee strain and back tension. Okay. If we want a lifted, rounded posterior chain shape, then we have to shift the load backwards. And this is simply biomechanics. This isn't something like, oh, you're going to have to retrain your body or you're stuck being quad dominant. Simply instruction, awareness, repetition. But what's happening underneath this stability issue? Everything's going into the quads. Weak glutes, okay? Greek glute medius. So on anything laterally, you're going to, people step out but can't break the hip. Pelvic instability. I think most people that go in the gym, they don't really think about pelvic stability, but if you haven't got a stable pelvis, then the body's going to compensate all over. If your knees cave inward slightly when you squat, your glute are not stabilizing. Just taking your feet a bit wider isn't the answer. It's showing you how to stabilize through your glutes. What happens there is, so if you're somebody that's squatting or lunging and your knees falling in and your trainer says, just take your foot a bit wider, well, it can be a temporary solution, minimize it a little bit. But what's happening there is your glutes aren't activating, they're not stabilizing, and your quads are having to take over to protect the joint. Your body's not stupid here. It's always going to prioritize joint safety. So if your glutes aren't strong stabilizers, they can never be prime movers. Make sense? If your glutes can't stabilize, so if something as simple as your knees falling in, if they can't even stabilize that, how are they possibly going to be prime movers? Now, as we get older, I said there's less complaining generally about thick quads because now people like them. I'm just so backwards. Like when I wanted bigger thighs, and now I don't. Well, no, that's a lie. That's a lie. I love muscular quads. I really do. But I like the flare on the front. I don't like the outer thigh sweep on me anymore. I want the front. So if I look straight down, I don't want to be able to see my knees. I want that front sweep, not this side sweep. I don't think most women would. Well, I don't know. Maybe you wouldn't agree. But what I'm saying is fashions have changed. And, for decades, ladies came to me trying to get their quads smaller. Now the fashion is for really big quads. And then I always think, man, I hope you've got like talcum powder. Well, not talcum powder because it's carcinogenic, but something inside your thighs so you don't get like some nasty rash. But anyway, I can hear some of you laughing. I'm on a roll today. But in midlife, as people get older, there's less conversation about, my quads are too big because, legs always go first. That's an old bodybuilding term. And what that refers to is when you'll get maybe a retired bodybuilder that goes back to the stage and the legs are always, or the legs always look bad. And there's a saying, legs go first. And it's true. When muscle mass starts to get lost, legs go first because there's so many fast twitch muscle fibers. So as we get older, less people are talking about how big their thighs are, but they are complaining about sore knees and sore back. So after the age of, I don't know, 38, 40, that muscle recruitment does slow down. Those fast twitch muscle fibers are lost. If you don't know what they are, please, please, please come to Do Muscle Month. Just knowing about fast twitch muscle fibers and how to recruit them is worth the price of admission. Sitting increases. Strength training often decreases. Or the type of strength training often decreases. Like I'll hear people, yeah, I used to squat. I don't squat anymore. My knees are good. I thought, here's an observation. People sit all day, drive all day, sit all day. They go to the gym, sit on benches, use machines, and they go sit on an exercise bike. No problem there. Now, if you want to go ahead and add restricted dieting or the weight loss medications without strategic programming, then that quad dominance becomes even more exaggerated. Why? Because, the glutes require higher mechanical tension and deep hip extension. So the quads just activate easily if they don't have that. The quads, they'll be efficient. They'll respond super quickly. Maybe the lady sees like, oh, I'm building muscles. My quads are growing. And then they turn around and they still got that flat ass. This is just improper loading. This is so easily corrected. But here's what shifts you toward quad dominance. Forward torso leaning lower body movements. Now, if you're forward torso leaning deliberately to activate your glutes, I'm all for it. If you don't even know what your torso is doing, that's a problem. Vertical shin positioning in certain exercises. Pausing at the end of hip extension would be a good idea. Strengthening the glute medius intentionally, the band stuff. Reducing excessive knee travel. Well, if glute bias is the goal, then stop that knee traveling forward. Not because it's necessarily bad. That whole thing about your knee shouldn't go over your toe has been disproved in healthy knees. But if you're not really aware of how your foot position influences where the load goes, then that has to be addressed. Because if you don't address it, for one, you're not going to get the results in the gym, but you're going to get hurt. And you're going to be like, oh, I don't squat anymore because my knees hurt. Well, they didn't have to. What is often disregarded is, exercise selection should be based on a person's structure. I mean, I don't necessarily go into this with my training clients. I do in Muscle Month and I do in the personal training program. I just kind of eyeball and I just know, I'll get a client and I'll look at them, watch them move. I'm like, no, I got it. I got it. And I will base their exercise selection around, their structure. Because not everyone should squat in the same way. Not everybody should load a back squat. They should always back squat, but they don't have to load the back squat. Not everybody should use the same stance. Why do I have some people do sumo squats? Why do I raise the heels on some ladies when you train? Not everybody should use the same depth. Proportions matter, femur length really matters, and postural placement, structure, and awareness is crucial. So quad dominance isn't just the aesthetics, the big quads and flat ass. It will show up as knee pain. It will show up as patella tracking. It will show up as hip bursitis. It will show up as lower back strain. And then, it just limits posterior chain development. So posterior chain, think about your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back. Maybe I'll do a video on posterior chain. Let me write that. That's a good one. Posterior chain. If you want longevity, what is longevity? If you want to be moving pain-free for a long time, we have to be aware of this stuff. You know, it might be frustrating when you're seeing results in the mirror, but they're not the results you want. That might be frustrating, but we have to address this, right? If you want to create, so that the gym to me, and again, when people think weight training is boring, it's just because they don't know what they're doing. I mean, if I was going to play golf and I just went and just tried to hit a ball, it'd probably be boring. But with coaching, that gets exciting and people get, completely addicted to it. So it's just the understanding. That's where the passion lies. That's where the passion lies, through the understanding. And for me, and this is why I've never been interested in CrossFit. Not knocking CrossFit at all. I've seen what it's done to my brother, who's in insane shape and is, highly motivated by it. But for me, probably I'm vainer than my brother. My sister-in-law's laughing right now. Am I vainer than my brother, Lisa? I guarantee I am. But for me, it's the same reason I didn't go into powerlifting when a lot of bodybuilding girls did. I literally don't care. I love lifting heavy things. I love lifting heavy things. I love going to my maximum weight in things because of how it feels. But my ultimate passion that's always been in the gym, and the reason I'm I love it so much, is because you can create anything you want. It was never about the poundage. It was always about what you could create with the gym. For me, the weights and the dumbbells and the barbells, it's like having a paintbrush. I can create, and I think it's also one reason why, I love training people. I really, really do. I mean, I can't remember the last time I trained somebody that I didn't get along with. I literally spend my whole day with friends. But for me, it's like looking at their body and creating something, and we can do this, we could do that, we can put your angle this way and do that. It's so much fun. So that's where the passion lies. That's where the joy lies. That's, for me, where the creativity lies. That when I look at somebody's structure, I can see, this is the exercise we're going to emphasize. These are the ones we're going to prioritize. These are the ones we're going to use, but we're not going to load. This is what we can create. This is the illusion we can create. That's always been my thing. Not just how many times can you lift this big lump of metal, I totally understand. Some people love numbers. They love the progression of the weight. I've just always loved the progression of the physicality of it. So that is quad dominance. What else are we going to talk about? Oh my gosh, yes. I definitely have to talk about nervous system, glute 4. I will talk about, I'll do videos on the rib cage and posterior chain. But next up is either going to be the video, a podcast on glute 4. If you don't know what that is, you definitely need to subscribe so you can hear that one. But I know another one that people want me to talk about. It's ladies' triceps. And why the guys, frustratingly, don't have the same issue as the loosey-goosey ladies' triceps. That's coming up next. But, final plug, musclemonth.com. First Zoom is March 29th. I think there's 10 live Zooms in total. There's a whole content library that you have access to for a year. We're in the gym, but we're not only in the gym. So, for Muscle Month, there is some gym time and there's a lot of, theory time, talking about the nutrition, the nervous system, and everything else, the adaptation, the muscle contraction, the fibers. So everything's to do with muscle. Musclemonth.com. Don't worry if you can't make the Zooms, they're all recorded. I think there's even split payment. You can even split the payment into 2 or 3 times. So try to make it so easy for everybody to join up. Because once it's done, I guess you can always do it again in 2027. All right, that's it for now. Hi, I'm Joanne Lee Cornish. body composition coach, and slightly obsessed with being an outlier in midlife and beyond. I offer one-on-one coaching. I have 7 group coaching programs that I run throughout the year. And I also have a 10-month mentorship program. You can find out all about those and a lot more at my website, joannelee.com. Okay, let's get on with this podcast.